Since we have such an intimate crowd, I thought that we could spend our 5 minutes doing the usual introduction. Most of us, except for one, know each other, but the introduction and what we do. And then I thought of a sort of a test question to talk about one thing that you're doing or would like to do regarding AI now that it is upon us in full force. And so discuss the one thing, and I know, Victor, you've got one.
I've got one.
Oh, great. So what's top of mind for you in AI? And then at the same time, talk about one thing that may be a problem down the road, something that, and if you've thought of it, great, or if you wonder and somebody wants to ask questions about, so how do you deal with the unintended consequence of doing this, either to your business or your clients, or is there a danger in reaching out? Because that's the big discussion that's going on in, well, everywhere. Is it's great, but help. So what happens if? And I'm writing a book on that, so I know a little bit more than I should. But I would like to hear everybody just give their sort of vision for how AI can help them and their clients, and what the possible unintended backlash might be.
So you mean the upside and the dystopian view?
Well, not necessarily that dire, Victor, but I mean, for me is if ChatGPT explodes with scandal, and if you based your next offering on ChatGPT, what does that mean for your clients? How do you prepare for things that might possibly go wrong? So, per Michael's advice, grab this. I put Michael's and my information in the chat, by the way, and our little intimate group. I'm going to put in order as he does. So let me get the clock going. And 5 minutes. I can't look at chat and the clock at the same time. This is fun. Okay. No, I don't want to share my screen. Okay, so Nathan, Russ, Lori, Laetitia, Greg, Victor, and Joanie. That's the order, and I'll do mine at the end, if everybody's cool with that.
Sure.
So take it away.
Oh, okay. That was a bit of a surprise. Yeah, I was looking at the list. Anyway, yeah, my name is Nathan Segal. My thing is ghostwriting, and what my big promise is I show people how to save up to 80% of the time and money that it would take to write a book the traditional way, have access to a whole bunch of different things. And hey, one of them is ChatGPT as part of the writing process. So where I'm using it is with editing. And I've found that in working with it, it adds a nice bit of flavor, if you will, to my editing process. It does stuff that I have thought of in the past, that I have used in the past, but haven't necessarily used with what I'm currently doing. I don't have a lot of experience with it. I used ChatGPT for a couple of press releases a while ago, and I was really amazed. The first time I used it, it was like really quite lovely. And I looked at it, and there were only like 5 or 6 things that I had to correct. And I sent it to my partner at the time. We were working on a project, and he looked at it and he said, "You missed a period." And that was all the criticism he had for me. And I just took it and I published it, and away we went. And it was just great. But unintended consequences, I'm sorry, I don't have enough knowledge to be able to comment on that at all. I don't. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I mean, as I'm a ghostwriter also, and I edit I edit a lot of books too. And I absolutely need a copy editor to follow me in any project, including something I've done, a content or a developmental edit, which is much more in-depth, like surgery, trying to dig in and fix stuff.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I have Robert's rules, right? I have the Chicago Manual of Style on my bookshelf, so I'm always reaching for it. But I always it's 1,000 pages, and there's stuff that unless you're a professional copywriter who's memorized stuff, missing the obvious stuff. And Chat GPT is very likely to get it right because that's part of their knowledge base. But their knowledge base is also all the stuff that was badly written on the internet.
Yeah.
So
But
it's not a guarantee.
Yeah, well, the other problem with ChatGPT that I've been hearing about, there was some lawyer who prepared some sort of a brief or something, using it, but it hallucinated information. The information was fake. The citations were fake. He wound up in major trouble, I believe, with some sort of judge over it
He's being
because,
brought up for sanctions this month, I think.
yeah, because he didn't check. And that's the other thing about ChatGPT. There is one other thing I do want to mention now that we're talking about it briefly, is that one of the things that people have told me is that I'm going to lose my career as an artist to AI. And I'm sorry, guys, but do you know how to see as an artist? If you don't, then please shut your mouths, because you're just embarrassing yourselves, because you don't know what you're talking about. And if you don't know what to see, like this one guy who sent me something and he said, oh, this, and I said, do you know what's wrong with this image? He had no clue.
Yeah.
And not only did he not know, but it's like you sent me an image of a guitar standing on its end. Well, there's only one problem. A guitar like that, with all the rounded stuff, there's no way in hell it can stand on its end unless it was being held, but you only saw part of it and you didn't see the rest of it. And there were all these things. And I'm just going, please stop embarrassing yourself by trying to impress me. I know how to see as an artist. I know what's wrong. And the vast majority of these people, well, actually all of them who have hit me with this, none of them know how to see. And they're going, you can program that in. And I'm going, no, you can't, not really. You can do it to a point, but you're still going to need a human to look at this thing and make damn sure that it works.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, enough of my rants. Sorry.
That's fine. No, thanks. There's a joke going around the design community, and I think it was posted on LinkedIn. Chat GPT or the AI will take over our jobs the moment the customers know what they want.
Yes, I saw that. I like that. That's awesome.
Because it is I want something like in a video that we do or something, they ask for something that makes no sense from an artistic standpoint, but somehow they got it in their minds. So ChatGPT will follow their crazy advice. But it is an issue. I mean, there are things that are going to be taken over because they're easier to do with a prompt than they are to do by hand.
There's no question. I mean, from my perspective, with the images side of AI, I would be using it as a design tool, but I wouldn't be using it for a finished product. I would use it the way I've used other things in the past to create ideas, and then go from there and see what I can do to refine it.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So speaking of design,
not for me. Yeah.
Speaking of design, Russ.
How you all doing today? So I'm a graphic designer, website designer, developer. Everything that you can do on a web or print, I pretty much do from a design standpoint, and on a website, also into development, including writing HTML and CSS, WordPress, all that lovely stuff. And just really quick, I just wanted to mention to John and Nathan, have you guys heard of proofreadnow.com?
Say that again, please.
So what did you?
Proofreadnow.com.
I think you need to write that into the chat. Like when you speak,
Russell, it is basically what it says. It's a proofreading company, and it's great for writers. What's great about them is they are, and I'm not sure about my spelling, so just bear with me on that one.
Yeah. Is it like Grammarly?
I'm not that familiar with Grammarly, so I can't say. I just know that I learned about this company because I worked for a marketing agency, and instead of having proofreaders on site, they use this company. And I've given this out to clients as well as other writers. And A, they're very, very affordable. B, they're very efficient, and C, they are very meticulous. So they really will pull out. And what they do is they give you a PDF of the proofread, and they basically point out some things are suggestions, some things are, you just can't do this. And they'll even do things like, if you want to, it depends on how advanced you want them to be, they'll like reorganize a paragraph or something like that.
Yeah, I just found the site proofreadnow.com.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you guys might find that useful. It just occurred to me now when you guys were talking about proofreading.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for
from
the
a
referral.
AI point of view, from a graphic designer and a website designer. So yes, you can actually tell ChatGPT to build a website, and it'll do the HTML for you, all that stuff, and you can pop it into a browser and it'll work. But to Nathan's point, like as a designer, in the process behind design, it's sight. It's being able to understand what your client wants. It's being able to problem solve, right? Because every time somebody wants a design or an element, what they really have is a problem and they need a solution. And I don't think that GPT or any of the AIs have that ability yet. Now, whether they will or not in the future is yet to be seen. But for me, like if I do a design, my process is basically I'll understand what the client needs, I'll do a design, and then I'll walk away from it. And I'll come back to it over a course of several days, reorganizing, re-looking at it, taking a fresh eye approach out of it to make sure it's actually solving the problem. And I keep asking myself, this is the problem, did I create a solution? And, it might be the first day might be 50% a solution. And until I feel it's 100%, I'm not going to show the client. And that's on both the print and the website design, side of it.
I mean, you raise a valid point, Russell. I mean, as a writer, one of the things that I've done many times over the years is I write something, but I don't finish it the same day. I tend to work on it over a number of days because usually maybe 2 or 3 days, because I find that if I leave it for one day and I come back, that's when I see all the mistakes that I've made.
Exactly.
And I see different ways to tidy it up, fix it, make it look better, and so on.
Yeah.
And sometimes the first day it makes perfect sense, and the second day is like, well, what was I thinking? Let me change
Exactly.
that.
Exactly.
And that's the creative process that AI can't do. It basically searches the World Wide Web and says, so-and-so has done this has done that. If we put this all together, here's your solution. But it's not really, I guess, analytical, I guess maybe is the word I want to use. It doesn't have that ability yet to understand problems and come up with solutions. It just looks for the solution and then spews it out. An example, and I've shared this before in this group, is I, not too long ago, did a post on LinkedIn. And I did it in a post of the community of marketers. And it was a quote. And I asked GTP to give me 20 quotes from famous designers, the person's name and the quote. And it did that. And there's one quote I did it, I created this great design for it. It was the most reaction I got to anything I've ever done on LinkedIn. So I'm thinking, this is great. All of a sudden, 100 likes in or whatever, I get this. So-and-so didn't do that, so-and-so did. And I'm like, okay, well, this is the information I got. Maybe they both did. And the person started insulting me. So I said, okay. First of all, I blocked them because that's uncalled for, whatever. But I blocked them and I did some research. I went back to ChatGPT and I said, provide me the sources for all the quotes. The first thing, so this quote was like the third one down. The first thing comes back with, my apologies. So-and-so didn't say that, so-and-so did. And then they gave me the source. So the danger to ChatGPT is if you don't know the solutions and you're looking for them, I have no idea what I'm looking for, ask a question and then it spews out the answer, and you take that as the answer, that's where the danger lies. You have to then you have to understand that you need to verify. And I did a course on prompting, and it talks about that all the time. Is you always got to dig a little deeper. Like, where'd you get that source? When was it written? By who? Understand the source before you use it as a source. I'm out of time. Oh.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to be. It's a loosely organized timing here.
Right.
Thanks, Russ.
Sure.
Did you find the source for the actual source?
Then I went back and said, now give me all the sources. And then it gave me the sources and corrected the ones that were incorrect. And then I actually went and looked up the source to make sure.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah.
Fascinating. So, Lori,
Yeah. Am I supposed to introduce myself? My first
yes,
time.
please. I think this is just your first time here.
Yeah.
Great. So yeah, definitely introduce yourself. And where'd you get the invitation to come here?
From, what's the name of the guy who runs it?
Michael.
Michael.
Michael Bandit. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, Michael. I had a conversation. We connected on LinkedIn, and then I had a conversation with him, and then he sent me this, invited me.
Great.
So, my company is Lori Karpman and Company. We're a full service management consulting firm. We have a couple of divisions. My primary division is franchise consulting. So I help businesses who want to franchise their business. I take them from one location to being a franchisor. So we do the legals, the operations, the financials, the sales and marketing, and we're full service. And then I have a professional copywriting practice, which is what brings me here. So I'm a professional copywriter. I've been writing for 40 years. And I work primarily with graphic designers and digital marketing agencies, because typically the marketing agency will either do the graphic design, but they don't write the copy. So they'll do the graphic design for a brochure, for example, but they don't write the copy. Or they do the website, but they don't write the copy. So they do the whole wireframe and they do the website, but they always rely on the client for the copy. So I've been teaming up with other marketers and other marketing firms so that now they can offer their clients another service, which is actually the copywriting. So I work with web designers and web firms, and they say, well, okay, well, we have a new service now. We offer copywriting so that they can provide more value to their clients.
Excellent.
So yeah, so I write websites and landing pages and blogs and brochures and anything, scripts, any speeches, anything you could possibly think of. That's my passion business, is my writing. As far as AI goes, I actually gave a presentation last week on AI and ChatGPT. The problem, and as a writer, I don't think it's going to replace me. So I'm not worried about being replaced, because as I tell my clients, it's going to spit out something. Whatever it spits out, it's not your voice. It's not how you talk. It's not how you would react and you would interact with your customers. So you really need someone who's going to take that copy and not just proofread it, but put it into your voice so that it actually resonates with your customers, and making sure that the marketing message, just because ChatGPT spits it out doesn't make it correct. To solve the problem of sources, I use copy.ai. Copy.ai is much better than ChatGPT, because copy.ai gives you all the sources. So you don't have to go and look at them. You don't have to look them up. They're all correct. They write the article with the footnotes, and then they give you all the sources at the bottom, which are all correct. So the thing about copy.ai as well is that ChatGPT has scoured the internet and has learned what's available up to 2021. It's still 2 years behind, whereas copy.ai is up to date. So I find copy.ai to be it's an investment. I mean, you have to buy it. It's not free like ChatGPT. But, if you're a writer, I highly recommend that. The issue that's coming up is that Google now has this search function, and it can tell if an article has been written by AI, and it will block it. So in order to make sure that you don't get blocked, you have to take whatever copy it is that you got from automation, and you have to change at least 20% of it. Once you change 20% of it, it's considered an original work, and then you won't get caught by the bots.
So is the training data set for copy.ai the whole internet to
Yes.
till today?
Yes.
Not till 2001.
No. And like I say, it gives you all the sources. It's just much easier. It's faster. It's much faster. I find it gives more information, better information, more accurate information.
So Laura, do you find that the AI is a good starting point for your copywriting? Like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I write a ton of copy. I write blogs for, I don't know, many companies. And I use it especially to come up with topics because I've got to write blogs for like 2 blogs a month for each of these clients. So I use it to generate topics. And then I'll take that topic and I'll use it to generate just sort of an outline. And then I go and I do my own research and I add in and I make it sound like the client.
awesome.
Cool.
Thank you.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is fascinating. Especially the 20% rewrite, because I figured that was going to happen.
Yeah.
But Google is not going to stop. I mean, they have their own AI, Bard.
Yeah, it's not
And-
available in Canada. It's only in the US, Bard.
But I'm wondering at what point do bots start challenging bots, and especially in SEO, where
Well-
you have all these filters against AI generated content that are constantly you're escalating the stakes, because the generators are going to try to get past the bots, and the bots are going to try to stop the generators. And I mean, I don't think we're looking at Skynet here, but
No, but they do seem
Yeah.
to be fighting each other.
somebody
Yeah.
called bots, generating copy for bots, the boring apocalypse. Because you're going to humans still have to read the stuff that we write, and we only have a certain amount of time in a day to read. So at the end of the day, how many summaries are we going to be able to consume of huge bodies of words generated and checked by huge large language models? And then eventually some human's going to have to read it and make a decision. So
You know what's going to happen, John? It's all going to be Johnny Mnemonic, right? You're going to have the chip in the back of your head, download all the information, and then pull it out when you need it.
My wife and
see
I
it.
just watched the original Terminator movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh.
Yeah.
And we thought, like it happened. The crisis that like he comes back from the future from is in 2029.
Oh,
So I thought, okay,
We got a few years yet.
we got a
that
couple more
sounds
years.
about right. Yeah.
We got a couple more years. Sorry, Greg has had to leave. But Laetitia, I think you're next.
Yeah. Thank you, Laurie, for the introduction and welcome. I just was on the copy.ai website just for the others. There is a free version up to 2,000 words a month, but the website seems to be down right now. I tried to sign up for the free version, for the paid version, for every version, and every time I get a 404 page. So, but there is a free version, which is cool, so that we can try it and then see if it's something that could be interesting for our jobs or not. So I'm Laetitia. I'm with a French startup called Facility, and we are into digital accessibility. So what it means is that we have created and we are distributing a tool that can be plugged on any existing website to make it accessible to people with disabilities, visual, motor, or cognitive. So clearly what it does is that you have those filters, you can activate them from your computer, from your screen, and it's going to be applied on the page that you are looking at and make the adaptation that you need or want. I'm saying need or want because initially it was a UX tool. The goal was to be able to personalize the website that you were currently looking at. Then we went to the accessibility industry because a lot of people with disabilities were actually finding it useful. And now we're going back to personalization because basically we don't believe in a big divide between the abled community and the disabled community. I think it's like much more complicated and blurry than it looks. I don't have any visual impairment other than like I'm looking at my phone like that because I'm in denial for the glasses, but I'm not really, I don't really have any visual disability. However, my computer, my tablet, my smartphone, they are all in dark mode because just like you guys, I guess I'm like about 14, 15 hours a day in front of a screen. either for work or for pleasure, you know. So at the end of the day, my eyes are tired. Am I disabled? No. Can I benefit from the cataract filter? Yes, I do actually. So I use it. So our clients are banks, insurances, the press a lot in France. We have a few museums, schools who are going into the school industry big time because of our dyslexia filter. And e-commerces, of course. And that's what I'm looking for in the US and in Canada. Laurie, if you have any referral, I will give you a commission. What else am I forgetting? Yeah, so ChatGPT and AI. For me, it's very interesting because English is not my first language. So writing something in French, super easy. In English, I mean, I speak well enough that I can talk to you guys, but I'm a little shy when it's about like writing official things. So I've been using ChatGPT, and Grammarly, I didn't really like it, but I have another one that I really like. And of course, I'm forgetting the name, but I will put it in the chat later. Yeah, I'm all for it. Now, I also agree with Laurie. I think it's very important to stay true to your voice. And
Yeah, hold on.
Hello?
I think Nathan had a audio.
Problem?
He's frozen, Nathan.
He's frozen.
Ah.
So
Yeah, ChatGPT and these tools are great for ideas, and for me, it's pretty well written. You know, I don't see anything that is weird to me, but there is lacking the personality and the voice of the brand or the person. So I think it's a very good point for me to avoid the blank page syndrome, you know, where you have to start and you don't know where to start, and it's so embarrassing. You're postponing and postponing and postponing and procrastinating. Well, here you can have something right away, and then all you have to do, and it's like a big work. All you have to do is just to go back and make it sound like you. Voilà. And for the possible potential danger, I'm not smart enough to have the answer to this question. So I'm going to let Victor or John or somebody answer that question.
great. So yeah, Nathan is having problems, so he'll probably rejoin us soon. And we're recording this, so no worries. Yeah, I'm curious, everyone, about since clearly it can enable people to get started in their art or in their what their output is, and if they're true to their voice. But this happened with every new technology that facilitated rapid deployment of ideas, even back to the 80s and desktop publishing, that where had my start. People were producing reams of garbage because it was easier to do. And now AI will make it even easier to produce reams of garbage. How do we distinguish the signal from the noise that's going to occur, this new wave of noise? And how do people as artists, as creatives, as message bearers, distinguish their signal from all the noise that's going to happen? That's something that automation, I doubt seriously whether automation can parse that single voice that you need to do for your client or your author, whoever it is, to bring that into yeah. Nathan, I muted you briefly, so everything okay?
You probably didn't hear that.
Yeah,
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
super. So anyway, we've
everything's fine on this.
okay.
Sorry.
Anyway, I think Victor's next.
Okay. Hi, folks. Nice to
Cool.
see all these familiar faces. Thank you, John. Nice to see all these familiar faces. And hello, Laurie. Nice to always meet people. I'm also a lapsed lawyer, so it's always nice to see lawyers who've seen the light. I do think the question.
That's why I'm recovering. Yes,
Yes,
I'm a
yes.
recovering attorney.
Yeah. It's a lifelong process.
Yeah.
And John, I think, you do raise some interesting questions about the future. And so I think this reminds me of the question I used to torture my Sunday school teachers with when I was a child, which is, if God is all powerful, can he make an object that's so big that he can't pick it up? Right. And so when you have the bots sort of fighting with each other, right, then I think, Laura, you were mentioning that, Google has these filters. So then obviously, then the prompt becomes, okay, write me something that the Google filter won't think is AI generated, right? And then you just kind of end up kind of going back and forth. So anyway, I think I've met, pretty much everybody here, except Lori. So the good news, I guess, sort of, is that I actually, in my usual schizophrenic way, I actually have a couple of new projects that I haven't told the people on this call about yet. Which are AI powered, but AI is not really the key element of it. So, often we talk about AI as in generating content, but it can also be used to assess content. So these really revolve around networking. And there's kind of two big things that I've kind of bumped into in the networking process, right? One is, every time you go to a networking event, everybody puts all their information in the chat. And then you try to figure out, okay, who do I want to talk to afterwards? And it's fine, when an intimate group like these 7 people, but I'm sure we've all been to events where there's hundreds of people, right? And so we were talking earlier about structured data versus unstructured data, and chat seems to be the epitome of unstructured data, right? Here's my name, and then 20 chat items later, here's my email, and 20 items later, here's my LinkedIn, right? So it's hard to go back and say, oh yeah, I remember that John guy said something about AI, but the chat is now like pages and pages long. How do I find him? What did he say? And that kind of a thing. So I'm working with a tool called ChatBridge. And what it does is when you download the chat, you can upload the chat to ChatBridge, and it will use AI to sort it all. And it will group it by person. And so everything that John says, John's contact information, is all in one place. And I've just started working with this company about a week or 2 ago, but it has the potential to really revolutionize the kinds of things I'm doing, right? It made me much more efficient. And so I'm actually representing the company as well, because since I'm going to all these networking events and using it for my own benefit, it's something that could actually be useful to all the people who are there as well, right? Because I've kind of been avoiding the gigantic networking events because it was hard to follow up afterwards. But now that I have a tool to do that, right, I can both, get more benefit out of the event, but also those people are my target audience, because by definition, because they're there, they need the tool because they have the same problems that I have. So and I'm happy to talk to anybody afterwards. If they, I can send you videos, or we can talk about how it works and if it would be helpful. So that's kind of problem number 1. And I just want to keep an eye on the time. Problem number 2, right, is once you've identified, okay, I want to talk to John and Laetitia and Russell and Nathan and Lori and Joan, and not those other people, right? The question becomes, how do you do so in a relationship building way? Because every networking group you go to, they say, don't sell, build relationships. And then they walk away. And what does that mean? How do you build relationships, right? It's like I saw advice. If you want a personal brand, become an influencer. Like, okay, how do I do that, right? So that's not really actionable advice. So I think one of the things I'm sure we all do is that when we meet people, we send them articles. So I know, for example, John is interested in AI. And I know that, Nathan and Lori and Russell are, interested in design or writing. And Joanie's in retail, and Laetitia is, about her business. So if I find articles that fit, I would send them to them just to say, hey, I saw this, was thinking of you, right? And as a way to build a relationship. The problem with that is it's totally serendipitous, right? So I'm subject to the information that I come across. So I'm representing another tool called Engage Pro. And what it does is it uses AI, where I type in somebody's name, contact information, right? And the notes I've taken from those one-on-one conversations we've had. So John is interested in AI, right? Laetitia is from France. Joanie was from retail. And so I input that and I say, how often do I want to be in touch with these people? You know, a week, 2 weeks, whatever it is. And when the time comes, the engine will go out and it will find the articles. And then I can just stick them in an email and say, hey, Joanie, remember we were talking about, the stuff you used to do at that retail establishment you worked for. Did you know this is what they're up to, right? So it will give me a selection that I, the human, can pick from as a way to, develop that relationship with Joanie, develop that relationship with Joanie or anybody else and stay in touch with them. So I found that to be a really interesting use of AI where hopefully we're not as subject to, the hallucinations and, Skynet and all that kind of a thing. So I'd be happy to talk to folks about either or both of those. Because I really think, by being here, we all want to do networking. We all want to build relationships. And we also want to do it, in a more efficient fashion. And
Right.
John, as you said, cut through the noise.
Yeah. So Victor, does it recognize if a chat session has Joanie in the text, in the unstructured text, does it know how to recognize that relationship where it is in your data so that you don't miss a beat? Because I miss connecting with people all the time, even though I know their name is in the chat.
Yes.
And they've said such and such, or they've, something really interesting has occurred in the chat, but I'll miss it.
Correct.
Partly because I'm very ADD, and partly because it's so much volume of information. So does it know how to parse that
Yes.
information and recognize people with whom you have a relationship?
Oh, that it doesn't do yet. I mean,
That's the learning part of AI.
Correct. Yeah, what it does, it's really more of an aggregator and a collator. And then right now, I think they built APIs into LinkedIn so that, so you take that information and there's still a lot of manual elements. I mean, that's a big thing, right? Eventually you want to link to your list of contacts. So it knows who you want to stay in touch with. So, John, you can ask me again next week. The answer might be different.
Okay, thanks, Victor. So Joanie, you are up.
Hi, everybody. As you know, we create original content for social media that's designed to be used daily, and it's video and it's storytelling. And we don't use characters. We use a picture of the product that we animate. So you don't know what the product is until the end, and then the product brand name comes up with a link. So it does sell, but we never talk about the product. We tell stories about the people who would use the product. So the writing is critical. I don't worry about AI as much as I probably should, because I feel that if you're a creative selling creative services, that AI has not yet gotten to the point where it's using the nuances and a sense of style, which is very integral to what we sell. And for advertisers, distinctiveness and stylization is critical. So I feel like as an artist, if anybody's in the creative services, it's going to be a while till they take over your nuances and your point of view, which is what everybody's been talking about. I haven't used it yet, but I'm always thinking about how we need to develop these things if necessary. To make our businesses better. We have a client now who is really focused on the Hispanic market. So all of his vidbits are characters that are Hispanic, and the stories are heavily influenced by Hispanic culture. In fact, we're doing 20 vidbits for him. We send them out every other day, every couple days. And there's a lot that I have trouble understanding, but I know that his market totally gets it. Our writer now speaks in a very young, very hip voice. He writes for The Onion. So, as I said, there's a lot I don't understand. I happen to have somebody who's interning with me that is Hispanic, and I brought her on specifically to add flavor to the stories for this client. If I didn't have her, I'm assuming that we could use AI to interject different cultures that are necessary in the character development. And listening to this meeting and the talks that have been going on about AI in this networking group, which I completely appreciate, I realized that, you know, our products can go international, can go global. And then the stories have to be told in different languages. And I imagine that understanding the nuances of those cultures, that might be very helpful to us through AI going forward.
Mm.
That's how I see using it in my little brain.
Wow.
One of the problems that you run into is stuff like AI, and I ran into this years ago with Google Translate. I was dating this Mexican woman. I live in Mexico, and she said something and Google translated it. And I remember looking at her translation in English, and it said something, and I just go, "Oh, this is awful." And then it hit me. Wait a second. I need to look at the original Spanish. I spoke enough. I could understand enough. As soon as I looked at it, I found out why it was awful, because Google Translate mistranslated one word to the exact opposite of what it should have been. And so when you're dealing with this kind of stuff, you're going to have native speakers online to check your content in the various languages to make sure it's okay.
Yeah.
That's
I
very
mean,
interesting.
even me as a, super important.
Yeah, I think that's a really
It
excellent
has
point.
improved a lot,
This
huh? I
problem,
have the
this
same
problem has
problem with
existed
the
way
translation.
before automated technology, though, because there's
Yeah.
an urban legend about Chevrolet introducing the Chevy Nova internationally, and according to urban legend, the word Nova in Spanish means doesn't go, which was kind of a killer
That's
for
an example
Nova.
that's used.
Yeah,
in,
Nova.
design school.
Nova. Now, I don't know if that's true, but it illustrates the point that language is
I've heard that before.
Yeah, it's
language
actually
is
taught
not
at the school I went
language
to.
is not an equation. Language is this very fluid, very nuanced, very subject to subjective interpretation, and robots do not really get it.
Well, yeah,
Correct.
like one of the things that I've sorry, had over the years is a water bottle before I started learning Spanish. And it's called Contigo, which I thought was a cool name until I started learning Spanish. Contigo's with you.
I had a client many years ago who was all over the world, and they were in like skincare and fragrance and all that kind of stuff. And they decided they were coming out with this mother and child line, and they named it Mama Toto. What they didn't know is that in the African provinces, Mama Toto actually means, and excuse my language, it actually means motherfucker.
Is that not good?
They
Yeah.
did not research that before. Needless to say, it was an epic fail, right? So just goes to show you got to make sure you understand all the words you're using, no
Yeah.
matter what language.
Oh, yeah, and I don't let the stories go out until they're explained to me.
Right,
I
exactly.
Well,
do. I think as we become more global, everybody's work is going to be global to an extent, or so many people are going to be dabbling in multicultural languages and presentations. And that, I think, as long as you proof it, I think that's the most important thing that came out of this little session, is to make sure that somebody's there knowing what's going on.
yeah.
Which is the point I was going to say, that what I've learned from talking about this in this group today is that AI is a great tool for the professional, the expert in the field, because they know what to look for to make sure that it is correct or that it's a good kickoff or starting point. And it's an awful tool for the amateur or the person that thinks they don't need to hire a writer, they don't need to hire a designer, they don't need to hire this or that, because they can just put it in ChatGPT and it's going to spew out the right solution.
I agree with you on that. People have to understand that it's a tool.
Yeah.
It's not the be all end all. It's one tool that you have in your toolkit.
Right,
amongst
exactly.
other things.
And the other thing, we have a very customized service. So when I started dealing with investors and they started talking about, producing 300 stories a month, I was like, oh my God, what kind of a team are we going to need? And there might be a time when the first level of writing comes from the AI, and then the writers take it over and clean it up so that we can just handle the volume and still have the quality level.
That makes
Great.
sense.
Well, I think we still got a lot of time, but I'm going to do my little pitch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is
John, I'm so sorry. Just thank you so much for what you did for us. We finally got it online, and
great.
it's fantastic.
Great. And let's talk offline, because you said you had another possible one we could do. Another way to add that interaction. Anyway, this is not a coup. This is the Trusted Referral Network. I haven't taken over from Michael. My stuff and his stuff is at the very beginning of the chat. So if you haven't already done it, the 3 dots at the bottom of the chat give you a save chat option, which saves it in very unstructured text, Victor. And what I do with it is I open it up in Word, and I look for all the links, like the LinkedIn things, and I click, I do a space after the link in Word, and it turns into a link, and then I try to connect. But that's a manual process, and if you have a 40-person meeting, that adds up, and you don't have the time. Anyway, my background, I'm a ghostwriter, nonfiction, and I happen to be working on a book right now, which is my second book on AI. And in the chat, I'm going to, because we talked about hallucinations, and people give you references that don't mean anything. And there's a company whose founder I'm writing this book for, called Guion, and I don't have access to the actual program yet because it's still in beta. But his argument is that large language models have inherent built-in limitations and problems. And what his software is based on, it's a research application, currently available for enterprise. There's going to be a do-it-yourself version, of which I'm going to be the tester for this book. But it does not depend on volume and repetition of words in a training data set. His premise is that large training data sets are biased by definition, and there's a point of diminishing returns when you use LLMs, as opposed to what he's calling a knowledge-based or an expertise-based model, to which you add data for verification, but you don't depend on the data. He separates the data from the premise of the software, and I don't fully understand it yet. That's why I'm writing this book. But for people who use AI for research, my hope is that this will be a much better tool, because the essence of AI, of good AI, is transparency and explainability. It can't be a black box that you throw stuff at and get whatever the results are. Because if you can't explain it, if it's not clearly traceable to the knowledge source, then it's going to lead to problems. I also have a video production company, as Joan is aware, and we, partly as a result of a book I wrote in 2018, where we had 350 videos that we had to curate and make available to readers of the book. And so my 2 sons, who are designers, helped me with that, and we decided to form a business around that idea of producing video content for people who need affordable content for their clients, mostly agencies and marketers, some direct. So explainer videos. We're doing a lot of we're doing a lot of book trailers. So publishers who need a 1-minute video to explain their book, or to incur interest in their book. So yeah, hey Joan,
I need that.
you know where to reach me.
Yeah.
I need to jump. So I just
Yeah.
want to say
Yeah, thank you.
for having me. I
Lori,
really appreciate it.
thank you.
Oh,
Please-
yes,
please-
Lori, and I have a note that you're a writer.
Oh,
Yes.
cool.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because I am the staff writer for our video company. But there are times when we're going to need, if this scales, we're going to need people to do scripts and pre-storyboarding content, or actual titles for for these videos. So
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Good
I
to know.
will set up a one-on-one with you.
perfect. And my Calendly link, I think, is in the stuff that I put at the beginning of the chat.
Yeah, I copied the chat.
Cool, great. This
So-
is a very friendly, intimate group. I'm very happy. My first guest hosting appearance was so easy.
It was a success.
It was great. It
Very-
was,
so you
I
did
really
I don't know
appreciate
you,
it.
but you did a great job. So there you
Thank
go.
you, thank you. One of my clients also does virtual events for large companies. So in writing blogs for them, I learned how the back office people are necessary for big groups, and they use Slack, and they're in the background, sort of playing
Interesting.
backup to all the craziness that goes on in a big training event. So I learned a little bit from them, but it's a brave new world.
Yes, indeed.
And I did put the Guion link in the chat.
Yes,
I think it's worth following. I'm not just shilling for Venkat, my author, but it is an interesting turn, because he's saying, how long does it take you to learn to drive? What does it take to learn to drive? You don't have a million examples of stop signs and crosswalks. Most people learn to drive through a process based on the knowledge of the instructor and a communication of that knowledge so that you gain it. And yes, you need practice, and you need to have simulations, maybe a good simulation to learn how to drive, but you don't really learn to drive the way autonomous vehicles are being taught with large language models, large unstructured data models, because one of the self-driving cars had an incident where they were taught to the data taught them to recognize a pedestrian in a crosswalk. That was the image that they saw, but a person not in a crosswalk was not part of the data set. So guess what? Jaywalkers are targets.
Yeah.
Unintentional targets of these AIs that depend on large volumes of unstructured data to learn stuff, but there's always things that in here that you have to learn differently than by having a million examples. First of all, we don't have time for a million examples. And just because machines have a million examples doesn't mean they're going to get it right.
They don't have all of them, yeah. John, if I could just interject right before you leave, if
Sure.
you're so sorry about that. I mean, I know I love the AI topic, as you know, but one thing I just want to say, if you're looking for people who can help write scripts for your videos and storyboard them all, I have a business partner who's a former actress who then went to the other side of the camera and has created a ton of content. Joanie has met her. So let's put this. You don't have to take my word for it. You can take Joanie's word.
Yeah. No, I mean, we're not anywhere close to there. We're just a small little boutique operation, but this network and others have been sort of my recruiting ground for people down the road.
Okay, perfect. Yeah,
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, happy to help. Right. And then she'll tell you her story about she almost danced with Bruce Springsteen.
Cool.
Guys, I'm sorry,
Thank you,
I have to
everybody.
jump to
All
another
right,
meeting.
thanks, everybody.
I do too.
John,
Thank you.
Great job, John.
That was a terrific
Yeah,
session.
terrific session. Excellent.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
You guys have a great
Take
day.
care. Bye, everybody.
Bye.